All right, good morning, everybody. David Taylor, you're a piece of shit. And Michelle Brennan, you're a piece of shit too because you're just as complicit in this whole cult as David is. Couple things. This is going to be more, David, this whole video is going to be geared towards you today and your destructive behavior. I'm going to read some things off to you guys, the research I did overnight. And I'm going to apply all these to you, David, okay? The first one that I'm going to go over today is, it's called Cialdinis, I can't say his last name, Cialdinis' 6 Principles of Influence. And there's 6 principles of influence that David, you ultimately use to influence your people. The law of reciprocation, commitment, consistency, social proof, authority, liking, and scarcity. And then another one I'm going to go over today is the 8 criteria of thought reform. Because this is also something that you do too, is you this is all part of how you manipulate your members. Thought reform. Controlled communication within the group environment resulting in a significant degree of isolation from the surrounding society. Other techniques to restrict includes other techniques to restrict members to contact with outside world and be able to make critical, rational judgment and information. That's one. Number 2, mystical manipulation. The claim of divine authority or spiritual advancement that allows a leader to reinterpret events as he or she wishes or make prophecies or pronouncements at will, all for the purpose of controlling group members. David, that's you. Demand for purity. The world is viewed as black and white, and group members are constantly exhorted to strive for perfection. Consequently, guilt and shame are common and powerful control devices. And the doctor for this source is coming from a Dr. Paul Martin. He's a PhD, director of Wellspring Retreat, and this was February 12, 2013. But the 8 criteria from this guy named Robert Jay Liftons. He was a psychologist, and early in the 80s, he made up a list of the 3 main criteria for destructive cults, which we'll go over here in a minute. But I wanted to go over the 8 forms of thought reform, which, David, you ultimately do. The cult of confession. Serious and often not so serious sins are defined by the group are to be confessed, either privately to a personal monitor or publicly to the group at large. Yes, you've done this to people too, David. The sacred science. The doctrine of the group is considered the ultimate truth beyond all questioning or disputing. The leader of their group is likewise above criticism as the spokesperson for God on earth. Yes, you claim to be the Moses of this day, David, and you're full of shit. You're not a prophet. You're not a Moses. You've never been to any kind of preaching or theology school. If you do, show us your degree. Show me your degree, David, that you've had some kind of theology training, that you've actually gone to some sort of ministry school, not one where you could just apply online and get a license, but an actual degree, David, of some kind of theology hours. But you can't do that. You can't do that because you're not a prophet. You're a false prophet. Loading the language. The group develops a jargon in many ways unique to itself, often not understandable to outsiders. The jargon consists of numerous words and phrases which the members understand or think they do, but which really act to dull one's ability to engage in critical thinking. Absolutely. Proprietary, accurate, pacific, what else? Integral, frugal, it seems like those are some of your guys' main words that you guys throw around within the group. You guys, okay, that was one of the things I'm not supposed to do in helping these people, so I won't do that. Doctrine over person. The personal experiences of the group members are subordinate to the truth held by the group. Apparently contrary experiences must be denied or reinterpreted to fit the doctrine of the group. The doctrine is always more important than the individual. Yep. That's true too about you, David. Your doctrine is more important than any of your group members. You could give a shit about your group members, David. You don't care about their health, their well-being, their money, their finances. You don't care where they live. I mean, you make your volunteers pay rent. That you pay your volunteers that you don't pay your volunteers, and then you make them pay rent on the houses that they're staying in with, but apparently you're claiming that you pay them. Number 8, dispensing existence. The group arrogates to itself the prerogative to decide who has the right to exist and who does not. Usually held non-literally, this means that those outside the group are unspiritual, worldly, satanic, unconscious, or whatever, that they must be converted to the ideas of the group or they will be lost. If they refuse to join the group, they must be rejected by the group members, even if they are family members. In rare cases, this concept gives the group the right to terminate the outsider's life. So to terminate the outsider's life. So I guess that means to kill the outsider. That's what it sounds like to me. Okay, so those are the eight criteria of thought reform, David. And again, the psychologist behind this, his name was Robert Jay Liftons. Eight criteria of thought reform is applied to your program. If you take all those, anybody watching this from David's cult, apply those eight criteria to David. Just to David. Don't apply them to yourself. Apply them to David. And see what you come up with, okay? And then, let's see. For the 6 principles of influence, let's go over those real quick. I want to find a decent source. I wasn't able to find any, and I hate using like .com or any crap like that. I like to find actual sources. Here's one, conceptually.org. Definite explanation. Robert Cialdinis was repeatedly frustrated by salespeople and marketers taking him for a sucker, so he set out to discover what trick they used. That way he could better defend against them. You should find these principles useful no matter which side of the equation you're on. So this what I'm learning is the principles of influence can be used for good or bad. In your case, David, they're being used for bad. So let's apply these in your case, and let's see what everybody comes up with, okay? Law of reciprocation. People tend to return a favor, thus the abundance of free samples in marketing. The Hare Krishna gave you a free flower to solicit a donation. The best way to network is to meet people you like and help them out. Once you've helped someone, they'll be more likely to return the favor when you need it. The best networkers do this with no expectation of return, to not be insincere. So David, you do this, but you want everything in return. Commitment and consistency. If people commit to an idea or goal, they are more likely to honor that commitment, even if it no longer makes sense to them. Social proof. People will do things that they see other people doing. Monkey see, monkey do. People will tend to obey authority figures even if they are asked to perform objectionable acts. We'll talk about stuff there in a bit. I took a bunch of notes, so. Liking. People are easily persuaded by other people that they like. Cialdini calls this liking, but it is basically just the effect Hersitic talked about previously. Scarcity. Perceived scarcity of a product makes consumers want it more. I don't know what that was supposed to mean, but scarcity, I'm not sure how to apply that to David, but the other 5, most definitely. Okay, how do you know a cult is destructive? Omnipresent leader, charismatic. Yeah, Dave, you're definitely charismatic, but you're a piece of shit. Thought reform, coercive persuasion. We talked about thought reform. You're definitely manipulating these people, David, or thought reform. Is there any kind of criminal acts going on? I've heard stories of abuse, David. So yes, I know you're hurting people. Physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, you're hurting people. So yes, there's you according to Lifton, Robert Jay Liftons, you show the 3 signs of a destructive cult. The worship is towards you ultimately. People say, people in your cult say that they're worshiping God, but take you out of the equation. They would still worship you. And that's, again, you have no theology training of any kind. You don't have a degree. You don't have any kind of college education. You went to a cooking school, and then just all of a sudden, bam, you were preaching. Another thing that I was taking notes on was that, David, you are self-proclaimed. You are dictatorial. Yes. You're not elected. You say you're elected, but you say you're elected by God. We all know that's full of shit too, and that you're absolute in your cult's power. Or you're absolute in your power. You know that nobody's above you, that you're spiritually inferior, like you're spiritually superior to everybody, and everybody else is spiritually inferior to you, which is bullshit, David. You're a liar, dude. Give up your cult, man. And again, in order to bring this cult down, what needs to be focused on? What crimes have been committed? That's what has to be focused on. Not so necessarily like the ritual crimes of, because in America you can believe anything you want. You can believe whatever you want in America, which is what's badass about America, but it doesn't give you the right to do whatever you want in your beliefs. So let's take, who was he? Jeff, what was the guy? Warren Jeffs. The polygamist, the pedophile out of Texas that was, molesting little kids. Yeah, that's, okay, he was LDS, I believe, FLDS. But he, people were thinking he's a prophet and that he was suffering for pain, but he's molesting little kids. Like he's running this church, and molesting little kids in the process. You can't do that. Can't molest little kids, man. It's okay. So again, you can be a church, you can believe whatever you want. You have the right in America to believe whatever you want. But once crimes are being committed under that church, again, David, you're committing fraud. You're committing manipulation. You are forcing people to work. You're basically stripping them of everything they have and leaving them with nothing, David. You really are. And this is victim testimony. How are you hurting people? David, you're financially hurting people, you're emotionally hurting people, you're spiritually hurting people, you're physically hurting people. So again, that's destructive cult. Those are crimes. If you're physically hurting people, that's a crime. That's assault. And I have eyewitness accounts of the assault, David. Evidence there has to be evidence, and the claims, must substantiate the claims. The evidence must substantiate the claims. This is where we need people to come forward out of this cult to substantiate these claims, prove that David's committing these federal crimes. That way he can be stopped. We need the reports of the abuse, of the financial crimes, of the manipulation, of the labor, of the, he's not paying you guys, all the assets being moved around between bank accounts. That screams fraud, man. That screams fraud. You estrange people from their families. You hurt parents. You hurt kids. You hurt kids' parents. David, you have people in this cult that have family members out there that have contacted our group wanting our help to help get these kids back home to their families. Psychological and emotional damage, absolutely 100%, David. We know there's psychological and emotional damage from these people coming forward. One thing cults will do is also prevent people from going to school. We know that you let one of the Klein sisters go to school for journalism or something like that, but I think that's going to be to ultimately help further your scam. But y'all are I'm not going to. I've decided from here on out I'm only going to talk shit about you, David, and Michelle, because you two are complicit. I don't want to hound anybody else in your cult because we're trying to help these people. So, social isolation from the outside world, 100%. Yep. Missed opportunities. Like, these people that you have in your cult are missing opportunities with their family members. Lots of them. Grandkids, nieces, nephews, cousins, people, family members having kids, and, them not being able to be there to see the births, family members dying and not being able to go to funerals, Another thing I want to touch on is the longer you're in, the harder it's going to be for you to get out. If you've been in for 8 or 9 years, 10 years, the amount of deprogramming you're going to need is going to be extensive. You're going to have to rationalize a lot of things. One of the things that, David, you also do to your cult members that want to leave is you basically tell them, where will you go? You don't have anywhere else to go. We're the only people that understand you. Your family doesn't understand you. We're the only ones that understand you completely. That's what you tell people. You shun them. You basically make them feel like a piece of shit, David. But you're a piece of shit. Then you tell them stories of what's going to happen if they leave. Oh, if you come against this ministry, you're going to get cancer and you're going to get sick and all this other bullshit. David, you're a piece of shit. You're a liar. And then other thing is what these people believe is the only choice they have when they're told that is to be obedient to you, David. And no, man, we're going to bring your cult down. Social isolation within the group. Absolutely. Your group is a group within a group almost. You don't let any of your little cronies go anywhere alone because there's always somebody with somebody. It's like a battle buddy team. Like when I was in the military, you always went somewhere with a battle buddy. That's the same way it is with your cult. One, you don't want anybody talking bad about you. You want to know everything that's being said. That's part of your total control. You ultimately control the flow of information into your cult. You distort the perception of reality big time, David. Saying that you heal cancer and that lumps fall off of people's heads and shit and limbs are growing back. Doesn't happen. And yes, a lot of your cult members lack critical thinking and analyzing skills because they're in your cult and they don't know the difference between right and wrong, David. Another thing I want to talk about is your recruitment online. You are recruiting people online. You are going through Facebook accounts and anybody who leaves a comment on your Facebook pages. But what's nice is what I'm finding out is you're not doing a lot of Facebook work anymore. I don't do Facebook or Instagram, Twitter. I don't do any of that bullshit. You're still trying to recruit online. You're using Facebook, Cash App, using your social media accounts to indoctrinate people, playing the same repetitive old bullshit over and over again. And again, you started another YouTube account, JMMI. You have all kinds of YouTube accounts, David, trying to just pick up where you left off at with your Miracles in America channel that got taken down. But you started a new account called Face to Face Miracles in America. David E. Taylor, Face to Face Miracles in America or some bullshit. I've been flagging the shit out of that channel. I've recommended everybody do the same. Because this is what he's doing. He's using social media platforms. He's making money off of it. He's making money off of his cult scam while he's indoctrinating people to just, totally destroy their lives. You clean people out financially, David, that's no doubt. We know that. We know that for sure. You cleaned out Debbie Frazier financially. Took about, close to 2.5 from her? Quite a bit of money. One of the videos I've seen recently said that, the judge took you to court because, you took $1 million from somebody and you said $1 million doesn't disappear, but yeah, you made it disappear. Okay, David, you made it disappear. All right, it's gone. You can't find, you can't seem to find any bank records, So, again, David, you are a destructive cult. just to let you know. You're probably one of the more destructive cults out there. For people that want to know more about, I've come across some good resources. One called culteducation.com. I looked you up on there, David. You are on there. There's message boards. You can find out about currently operating cults. If there's family members out there that have family members in cults, you can leave messages on this message board. And it tells you anything you want to know. It's a growing board. It was started in '91, I think. So it's been open for 10 years? So it's been open for about 10 years now. And it goes into so many different cults. Talks about, again, you can believe whatever you want in America. You can start a fucking cult if you want, as long as it's not destructive. You could start a business and run it as a non-for-profit and call it a fucking cult. You could call it whatever you want. Whatever you want, just as long as the behavior doesn't become destructive. David, you are a destructive cult. So, I did my research. I looked up everything. I looked up certain doctors, psychologists, and David, you fall under every category of a destructive cult, a destructive leader. You're a piece of shit, David. You really are. You're not a prophet, man. Give it up. Give up your scam. Give up your cult. I'm still watching you. And I'll be making phone calls again this week I'm going to keep on you, David. Don't think this is over. It's not over until you're in jail. And these people are getting the help they need. So be aware of that. I'm on to you. Everybody else, have a good day. David Taylor, you're a piece of shit. If you don't believe me, ask Michelle.